Just a reminder, since mercifully auditions have picked up again, our sponsor, weaudition.com, is really this extraordinary full-service platform for actors. You can put yourself on tape. You can get an acting coach. You can even just get somebody to read with you. It's really terrific. And the cost is to sign up is like $10 a month. But if you listen to I Don't Need an Acting Class, Walker has worked out this terrific deal where you get a 25% discount. Anyway, I suggest you try it out because it's really phenomenal. I can't believe I didn't think of it.
Welcome to I Don't Need an Acting Class with Milton Justice.
Raphael sent me his audition for the Swedish Academy, and rather than saying, send it in, I'm making him redo it just because it shows what a wonderful person I am. But he made and I think this is a classic acting mistake, which was that suddenly the pressure to perform somehow makes you forget everything you've worked on. And I have to say, Greg has been abused by me much longer than the rest of you. So he made a breakthrough the other day in a rehearsal because he was not intimidated by the director. He wasn't intimidated by the script. He absolutely, would you say, Greg, it was one of the first times?
Yeah, because I really felt like I knew what I was doing, at least how to approach it to get to what I wanted. And I knew how to decipher things that directors throw out that they think are helpful for an actor. So it's a matter of, deciphering that, translating it, and, okay, I think he wants this, which would mean, and, it's all of that.
Yeah, and it's just time. It's time. But I know what happened to Raphael, because when I saw his auditions, all of a sudden, it's like, I think the first stages is you just don't trust it. You just don't trust it. It's like, I've done it this way forever, right or wrong. I've done it this way forever, and I know, and this is how I do it. And so, the idea that I had an impulse before I started, it kind of flies. And so basically, rather than having the impulse for the monologue, I go right to performing the monologue. And so I think that's a natural part of it. I think it's a natural part of it. It's not a panic, but it's just very, very difficult unless you try it and work it all the time. Walker and I were talking earlier about a very interesting, just very, very interesting dynamic about a class. And I think it happens in a class sometimes, and of course it's happened in this class because we've been forced into a situation of being together for so long. So you just suddenly, there is a place that you go. And Walker said, we've sort of become a family. And he said, it's like, and this is weird, but Chris Petrovsky lived with me for 4.5 years. He'd started auditioning probably at the 4-year mark, but about 4.5 years, he suddenly got a huge part on a CBS series. And I thought, well, that's what it takes. It takes like 4.5 years of being around someone or people who you trust, that you have permission to learn from. And so you learn, and then all of a sudden you go. So I think it's a normal thing. That particular panic is too big a word, but it's a normal thing that now all of a sudden I'm putting myself on tape for an audition, and that I go back to something that has worked, which is just perform it. So fortunately, and it was part of our game plan. I said, do it on Wednesday and then send me the audition because it's not due until tomorrow, so that we could look at it and he could have the chance to redo it. So he will. And also they don't know what they want. And it's really annoying. They want somebody in a long shot. They just want you standing in a corner at the back of the room where the sound sucks. Anyway. So I guess my note here is that it's very, very important that you keep playing with this massive number of technique concepts so that you begin to gain an ownership of them. You know, Caleb is suffering from the I need to know an exact process for every time I work syndrome. So until he figures out that doesn't exist, he's going to keep looking for it. I mean, you all hear him in class, or for those of you who come to Wednesday class, it's like, so first you do this, then you do this. It's not that bad. I'm exaggerating to make a point because that is something that you want. That is something that is just like a normal part of a human being to say, I want a methodology. It's probably why they called it the method. I want a methodology for working. But it's much more like, sometimes I'm a painter. Sometimes I start with a background. Sometimes I start with a red stroke. Sometimes I start with a blue stroke. Sometimes I start at the bottom. Sometimes I start at the top. So it's like you have to it takes a while to really take on board the idea that you're going to have to look at a lot of avenues when you approach it. But it also tells you I have to know a lot of information. So, I mean, it's a reason Sir John Gielgud said to an actor, takes 13 years to be an actor. And so, maybe. But I still go back to, some of you have seen the dinner party that I filmed with Eli Wallach and his wife Ann Jackson and their daughter Roberta and my friend Marge Loja and my adopted brother Chris Carmack. And Roberta, who's just a wonderful actress, Roberta said she went backstage to see her father in a play. The play had opened in Chicago and played for 3 months, and then in New York, same play, opened with a new director. And she'd been to the opening, and then about 6 months later, off-Broadway play, about 6 months later, she went back to look at it, and she said, man, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I went backstage and I said, Dad, Eli Wallach, Dad, what happened? And she said, and he looked at me and he said, I finally got. So now we're back to dinner. And she says, I mean, he finally got acting. After 50 years of doing it? And Eli popped up and he said, oh, no, I'm not acting. I got that moment. So, I mean, you have to, realize that, I mean, we're talking about people who work all the time are still trying to figure out acting. So it's, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do it, that you let yourself off the hook and allow yourself to say, what I'm doing is the most difficult thing anyone could ever do. It is, I do not think there's anything more difficult than acting. It's the reason I like directing. It's because I can just kind of sit back and watch everybody, bump into the furniture. But it's very, very difficult. Because you're basically, if you're working on it, you are basically looking at, understanding a human being who's on the page. I mean, literally, it's a human being that's being written, has lines of dialogue. And so you're first of all trying to figure out, who is this human being that says this? Who is this human being in this particular circumstance? And then, of course, I've made this demand on you that it is an idea that is an epic idea, that is a huge idea. And this is something that's very important that we get to more and more and more in class. If, as an actor, you understand the idea of the play, the size of the idea of the play, if you understand what this play is about, and the answer to the question is, it's not about 2 hours, and it's not about a plot. It is about a human being in circumstances. And it's trying to understand that human being, and I can't tell you how seldom it happens. I was talking to Mark Donnelly about this yesterday. This is why I'm friends with people for 50 years. These are the sort of things we talk about. But I was talking to him about it, and he said he saw Annette Bening do Hedda Gabler, and she's a really wonderful actress at the Gevin in Los Angeles. And he said it was a really good performance, but she had no idea what the play was about. She had no idea what this woman was going through. And that's consistent. It's a really interesting performance, but we have no idea what this person is going through. And that is what lifts it, is that you begin to understand that if one person is going through this, there are millions of people going through this. And what the audience responds to is that human being. They seldom respond to the plot. There aren't very many plots in a play. Plots in movies, but there aren't many plots in a play. So they respond to the human being. Well, it's difficult. I am building this person who is not me, whose skin I will step into, but I'm not sure who that is yet. So I'm not quite sure whose skin I'm stepping into. And then I get it. Sorry, I love when I make it sound so easy. So all of these things that we're exploring, this class has been meeting for like 10 months. We could easily keep, exploring for the next 10 months, and periodically somebody will have an epiphany. They'll figure something out, and sometimes it's me. And I go, oh, that's the issue. That's what that is. That's what that means. That's what that means that I've been teaching all these years.
I Don't Need an Acting Class is hosted and created by Milton Justice. Senior producer is me, Walker Vreeland, and director of online media is Evan Sollers. Music by Jeffrey Keyser Trio, May This Be Love, from their album On My Way to You. If you have a moment, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find us. And if you would like to send an email, if you have a question for Milton, you can do so at questionsformilton@gmail.com. Another way to get in touch is on Instagram at I Don't Need an Acting Class. It's brought to you by WeAudition.com, a full-service online platform for actors. And if you sign up and use the code Acting Class, get 25% off. Again, get 25% off when you use the code Acting Class. Again, the website is WeAudition.com. Have a fabulous week, everybody, and we will see you back here next time.